What is up guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video we are going to be unboxing, setting up, and reviewing these Esk8 specific LED underglow lights for your DIY electric skateboard. They are specifically designed for your DIY Esk8 as they are powered off of your board's battery and controlled using input from your Esk8. So without further ado, let's get into the unboxing. There were 3 things included in the box that Maxkgo sent me: a gold bubble mailer, a plastic bag containing a DC converter, and then the actual LED strip. They only sent me one single long LED strip, but I do believe that most of their kits now include 2 shorter LED strips. The bubble mailer contains all of the smaller components with this kit. There was a sticker with the Maxkgo logo, a receiver for the strips, and then all of the necessary cables. Like I said before, the DC converter is in its own plastic bag in the box that you receive from Maxkgo. It's got its own power switch, which means you can switch the LED lights on and off with a separate switch. This DC converter is used to power your LED strips from your electric skateboard's battery, as it just steps down the voltage from your board's battery down to a smaller voltage that these LED lights can use. The next component is the receiver, and this basically just takes input from your electric skateboard and tells the LED lights what to do. It has an end that plugs into the LED lights and an end that plugs into the UART port on your Esk8 for input. This receiver also allows for Wi-Fi communication with the app, which we'll get into a little later. The final plastic bag just contains all of the connectors needed to get this kit up and running. The first 2 cables are UART cables. There's a V4 and a V6 included. The next 2 are for communication between the LED strips and the receiver, and the last one is an XT60 parallel connector. And just like that, that concludes the unboxing portion of this video. Here's everything included with the kit. We are installing this LED strip kit onto our DIY boosted board. The first thing that we did was to take our XT60 parallel connector and connect it into the main leads of the battery. This connects into the single side of the parallel connector, and then one end of the parallel connector will connect into your ESC, which in our case is the Foxbox Unity, and the other end of the parallel connector will plug into your DC step-down converter. The next thing that we did was to set up the receiver, and the first thing that we did for this was to connect up the UART cable to the JST on the receiver. We are using the version 4 UART cable, as the Foxbox Unity is a Esk based on Esk 4. The next thing that we did was to take the wire with the black JST cable and 2 wires coming out of it, one blue and one white, and attach it up to the receiver. It's a pretty non-traditional Esk8 connector in which you actually need to screw down the connections. The blue wire went into the port second to the right, and the white wire went on the far right. The next thing that we did was to connect up the LED strips to the receiver, and this is done by connecting up the black JST cable from the LED strips and plugging them in to that JST connector that we just screwed onto our receiver. At this point, all that's needed for these strips is the power, and also the receiver needs to be connected up to the ESC. So we go back over to our skateboard, and we see we have the 2-pin used for powering from the DC converter plugging into the 2-pin on the LED strips, and then our receiver is powered using the UART port, which is that 7-pin JST, and we're just going to plug that in to the UART port on the Unity. At this point, the LED strips are fully connected and they should work, so just make sure your board is powered on, then power on the LED strips, and they should start glowing green. You can connect up a remote. We are using a PPM remote because the UART port is taken, and if you throttle, they should go into an RGB multicolored kind of pattern, and when you fully brake, they should just go solid red. Those are the preset settings that came on the LED strips that we got, and I'm pretty sure this is the preset for all of them, but this can be changed later on in the software. In case the wiring that we did in this video didn't make sense, here's the schematic for both the entire kit and for the receiver. All of the converters and receiver take up quite a bit of room, so I didn't have any space in the enclosure, so I actually just routed them outside of the enclosure, and I'm going to house them on the underside of my board for now until I figure out a better solution as to where to put them. Because we only have one strip and it's so long, the only way that we could mount this LED strip to our board was around the rim of the skateboard, so we just got a ton of double-sided tape, mounted it on various spots of the light, and tried to secure it to the side of our deck. Unfortunately, using a bunch of tiny strips didn't really work, so we resorted to using a single really long roll of double-sided adhesive. The double-sided adhesive is a super strong adhesive, however, it's absolutely terrible when holding these LED strips to the side of the board. They constantly fall off, and really it's not a reliable solution. It looks really good the first day that you put it on, but after some time, it starts to look worse and worse. Additionally, only one side of the board looks good. The side that the wire feeds into the side of the deck looks pretty terrible because there's a split in the light. The mountability of these LED strips to your board is definitely one of the biggest limitations of this kit. The fact that they don't include any adhesive is a huge drawback, and the geometry of these LED strips doesn't help either. If you plan on mounting these on your board, you'll need an extra enclosure hole for the power switch, as there is a separate power switch for these LED strips, which I think is super nice, so you don't have to have these on at all hours of the day, wasting battery. Now that we've discussed the setup of these lights, we're going to do a full review of what these things are actually like while riding at night. These lights have 3 default modes: standby, moving, and braking. So in standby, the default is just orbiting in green. Braking, when you pull back on the trigger, it glows red. Standby will be returned to if you're not touching the trigger, and then if you throttle, it'll go into that rainbow changing pattern. Of course, all of these can be changed within the app, which we'll get into right now. These strips are programmable via the app that's based on the internet, so all you need is a web browser and Wi-Fi connection. So open up your phone, connect to Wi-Fi, we'll put the password to Maxkgo right here, and then enter the IP address that we've shown right here, and just like that, you're connected up to the LED strips on the Maxkgo app. Under the Patterns tab, you can see the 3 modes: moving, braking, and standby, and then under the LED tab, there's a couple other settings you can change, but we didn't touch any of those. So back into the Patterns tab, we're going to go onto standby mode and just toy around with the various patterns you can choose. As you can see, it's pretty instantaneous. Once you change the mode on your phone or device, it changes the LED's settings immediately, which I think is super cool, and they have a ton of various pattern options that you can choose from. Right now, we are only changing the settings for the standby mode. However, you can do the exact same thing for braking and moving mode, so it's customized exactly how you like. The brightness and the speed of your lights can also be adjusted using the 2 sliders at the bottom of the menu. The LED strips color can also be fully customized. There's a whole array of colors. We're just spamming various colors here to show you guys how many colors there really are and how quickly these lights change. So it's super cool, you can really customize these. As I mentioned before, braking and moving modes are also fully customizable, but we're not going to go through those menus and show you guys what each of the options are, as they're very similar to those in standby mode, and we'd have to be doing those things in order to show it on camera. The app is definitely one of the coolest features about these LED lights, as they're super customizable and programmable to your exact taste. I was honestly astonished with how good the app is, how easy it is to use, and how quick it is to respond. I was expecting it to be super buggy, but it's anything but that. Overall, I'm just very impressed. Now to get into the actual lights, I am very impressed with them. They look amazing. I mean, just look at the footage we were able to capture here on a GoPro, just taking it out for the first time. They looked absolutely incredible. So much brighter than any other underglow or LED light that I've used on the bottom of an Esk8 before. And the footage turns out great. In real life, it looks even better. These LED strips just look so cool when riding at night, and they are extremely bright. I can't emphasize that enough. From a purely night riding aesthetic perspective, I would want these LED lights on any of the Esk8s that I have, as they just look so cool and I love riding with them on. My problem with these lights is not with the actual appearance of these things, it's with the practicality of them. The converters are super bulky, it's hard to find room if you have a tight enclosure, and also they're really hard to mount, and the shape of the strip that they sent me is not good. The only spot that I could realistically mount this strip is on the rim of this board, which is not an easy thing to do, and I don't think it's a sustainable way to keep your Esk8. When you're riding out in the real world for a sustained amount of time, a lot of miles you're putting on these things, carrying the boards, these LED strips are going to get damaged on the rim of your Esk8 when you drop it on its nose, when you run into something, and after just a few weeks, I don't think that these lights would hold up. For the first few times that you take these strips out, it looks amazing, but I don't think that they're sustainable in the long run, and that they're eventually going to fall off if you're bored. So in conclusion, I think that these lights are a fantastic idea and concept, but they're just not quite there from a consumer's perspective. They look amazing, the app is very well designed, but they're just not practical to install and maintain on a board. If you guys would like to learn more about these lights, we will leave a link in the description to Maxkgo's website. Like I said earlier in the video, they're releasing a ton of new LED light strip kits, so they're already working on some of the adjustments that I've talked about. If you guys made it this far and enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel for lots of other DIY electric skateboard content. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.